right, folks, late last night, the Wall Street Journal dropped this story on their website, this exclusive story, saying that Paramount was pulling the deal, guys, come on, get the right graphic, okay? The Wall Street Journal article, okay, thank you. Paramount was pulling the auction of BET. And so what the article laid out, it mentioned that Tyler Perry, Byron Allen, Diddy, and others were bidding on the network, and that the sale of BET was not going to, frankly, help their balance sheet. Now, Paramount, based upon all available reports, they were looking to fetch some $3 billion for majority stake BET. Okay, that was idiotic, okay? Control room, pull the story up from the New York Times when BET was sold, okay? Now, remember, y'all, Bob Johnson and Sheila Johnson, co-founders of BET. They make the announcement, the selling of BET, all right? BET was sold for less than $3 billion, okay? It was $2.34 billion, and the assumption of about $500 million in debt. So, BET sold for slightly less than $3 billion. So think about that. BET sold years ago for less, was it 99? For less than $3 billion, and your Paramount, you actually thought somebody was going to bid on BET in 2023 for a majority stake for $3 billion? Anybody who would have given Paramount $3 billion for a majority stake, and not all of it, for the depreciating asset, is stupid. And that's just a dumb deal. So I need people to understand what's going on here. They actually thought that black folks were going to overpay for the asset. Now, here's the whole deal. When you're selling these companies, you hope somebody overpays. You really hope somebody is dumb like Elon Musk, who completely overpaid by about, $20 billion for Twitter. We see how that's gone. The reality is no cable network is worth any of that. Who told us that? Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney. This is what he said last month on CNBC when it came to the linear assets that Disney owns.
Are you staying?
Well, let me start with the fact that I did like retirement. I highly recommend it, by the way.
You're never going to get to it, Bob.
Well,
I mean, you did it for 11 months, and that was it.
It was a good 11 months. And I came back to the company at the request of the board. It was a company that I started working at in 1974, 49 years ago when it was ABC, and we became part of Disney. And I obviously have deep passion for the company and in the business, and I care a lot about the people. After coming back, realized that the company was facing a number of challenges, some self-inflicted, some caused by changes in the business, large-scale disruption of certain parts of the business. And while a lot of work has been accomplished in the 7 or so months that I've been back, the board believed, and I agreed with them, that there was a lot more work to do. And the timetable that we had initially established, which was 2 years, seemed like it was putting undue pressure on us, even though we're getting at the work really quickly, but to accomplish everything we want to accomplish. So in part it was designed for continued stability and continuity, and also to give a team of very talented executives who work with me time not only to help me through what is a challenging period, but to develop themselves.
Yeah. We sat down in February. You'd been back a couple of months. And I did ask you if 2 years was too short a time. And you said, quote, you can get things done very quickly. Setting the company up for success is what you were talking about. So I wonder, did something change in your calculation of how quickly you can get things done?
Well, we've gotten a lot done very quickly. Significant cost reductions, a complete realignment of the company in terms of its structure.
Right there, significant cost reductions. In the interview, Bob Iger says that his linear networks, ABC News, ESPN, others, could be put up for sale. Why? He said because those networks do not have growth potential. Folks, understand what is happening in the media landscape, okay? Cable news used to be here. It's now here. It's going down to here. So perfect example. When ESPN used to be in 100 million homes. ESPN is now in 74 million homes. Now, by the end of the year, they're going to be in less than 70 million homes. Why? Because of cord cutting. Pull the story up. This year is estimated that 9.3 million people are going to cut the cord, meaning they're going to drop cable. 9.3 million. What that means is if you have a cable network, you have a depreciating asset. So if you buy a cable network today, the moment you buy it, the value of it is going to go down because you're losing customers. BET, when it was sold by Bob Johnson, was in 72 million homes. They're now down, folks, in the 60s and the 50s. The game is being changed in cable, in the cable. So it would be crazy to buy an asset today for more money than what is actually worth. It makes no sense whatsoever. If you actually run the numbers, BET at best, if you're going to purchase a majority stake in BET, it's probably anywhere from $1 billion to $1.2 billion at best. Now, why was Paramount interested in selling BET? Because they've been losing money on their streaming service, like all of the networks. Disney has lost $11 billion since 2019 on Disney+. Comcast last year lost nearly $4 billion on Paramount. Warner Discovery, they've been losing money. Paramount is even more perilous position compared to all the other networks because their market cap is small. You might say, wait a minute. It's Paramount, Viacom, it's CBS. Oh, they got the hit show Yellowstone. All that stuff means nothing. Pull up Netflix market cap. Netflix, y'all, pull up Netflix market cap. Netflix market cap is the highest of any media company. All right? Netflix, okay? It's 178 billion market cap. Now pull up Disney. Disney's market cap, okay, the close of today is $157 billion. Pull up Comcast. Comcast is third. Their market cap is 190. So actually it was Netflix, Comcast, and then Disney in terms of market cap. Now pull up Warner Discovery. Warner Discovery, that merger, their market cap is 31 billion. Now show Paramount's market cap. Their market cap, y'all, is less than 10 billion. They are the smallest major media company out of all of them. So they were hoping to sucker somebody black into overspending to buy BET, BET Plus, and VH1. That literally made no sense whatsoever. Now, a bunch of people out there have been commenting all day because they were like, oh my God, I thought Tyler Perry had bought the network. No, that's because a ridiculous website called The Streamer, which I've never heard of, put out this bogus report a couple months ago saying Tyler Perry buys BET. Y'all, the moment I read the story, literally, I knew it was a lie, okay? Now, this is not the actual report right here. This is a website. What you just saw was a website remarking on The Streamer. Well, guess what? If you go to The Streamer's website right now, you're going to see a 404 error because they took down the story. Everything in the story was a lie. I literally read it and I said, this is all a lie. But guess what happened? All these dumbass blogs and all these black bloggers, they all put it out there. So it was flying all across the internet. Hollywood Unlocked and all of these people, B. Scott and The Source, everybody and their mama was posting. I'm like, y'all, stop posting lies. They were all lies. The first line of the story said Tyler Perry buys BET from Paramount Viacom. Price wasn't disclosed. Y'all, Paramount's a publicly traded company. They had to disclose the price. Then the fools put in the story, Paramount is hemorrhaging money. They lost $400 million last year. That was stupid. It lost $500 million in the last quarter. It's like, where do y'all even get this from? And this is one of the biggest mistakes that we're seeing in black-owned media and black-targeted media. That we got a bunch of non-journalists who have no sources, who do no due diligence, who do no fact-checking, who put this stuff out to the public, and they know nothing about what the hell they're talking about. And that's what I keep telling y'all. Stop listening to people who are not credible, who all they do is repeat what other people say. I can't stand all of those Instagram black media companies who all they do is just, hey, so-and-so is reporting. They don't even pick the phone up to double check anything. And so that's what you were dealing with right here. And so you had Byron Allen in the process. You heard possibly Group Black, Shaquille O'Neal, Kenya Barris, 50 Cent. You had a whole bunch of people whose name were thrown out there. Most of those people were not actually involved in this particular deal. And so Paramount now pulls it off of the table. BT is not going to be black owned. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do it a little bit later, but here's the whole deal here. Anybody who tried to buy that network would have been crazy to spend that amount of money. It's smarter, frankly, if you're Diddy, why would you bid $1.5 billion, $2 billion on BET when you already own Revolt? It's smarter for you to take a tenth of that, 100 million, 200 million, and invest it in Revolt and build Revolt out to be a digital operation. Folks, understand what's happening in the cable business. It is dying. The numbers are going down, and those customers are not coming back. The best thing you can do is try to hope you switch them over to BET Plus, because people are no longer watching linear television, broadcasting cable like they used to. The costs are also a lot higher. And so that's what you're sitting here dealing with. And so I need people to I see all this stuff. I saw some idiot, what's that dumbass black millionaires, and I've dealt with them before. And again, and I'm calling names out because names need to be called. They posted some stupid tweet, the speculation. Anytime you see somebody throw out the speculation, stop following them because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So that was this. So let me see if I can pull it up, because I smacked them upside their head with it as soon as I saw the tweet. Oh, here it is. Paramount Global owns BET announced that they're no longer interested in selling a majority stake in BET after a bidding war of black billionaires to make BET black-owned again. Quote, many are speculating that it was a publicity stunt to get black people back watching BET. Black millionaires, y'all are idiots. Y'all are idiots. And you know what? No one should be following y'all. That wasn't the speculation. People are like, oh, they were doing this to get us to watch the BET Awards. You were already watching. That wasn't it. It was an actual deal. It was an actual offer to try to get the bids. But they got suckered into people throwing out crazy numbers when BET was never worth those numbers. It would be financial suicide to bid $3 billion for something that wasn't even purchased for $3 billion when it was at its highest. Who should we listen to on that one? How about Bob Johnson? This is what he told Bloomberg.
You operate BET before you sold to Viacom.
20 years.
You sold for roughly $3 billion, ultimately. So in hindsight, had you held on longer, would it be worth more today, or would it be worth less today because the cable world's changed so much?
It would be, in my opinion, less today, because once streaming came along and the technology allowed people to have streaming wherever they could carry content, on your phone, on your laptop, in your home, wherever you go, it changed the paradigm of cable, and it allowed people to sort of pick and choose in an a la carte way what they wanted to watch. So if you only wanted to watch Netflix, you just get Netflix. Cable, you were paying for a bundle, even though you didn't watch all of the channels. So some people were paying for, if you weren't a sports fan, you're paying 30 cents, 30, 40 cents, whatever it is now, for ESPN. But if you never watched ESPN, you had to pay for it because it was part of a bundle.
Actually, you're not paying 30 or 40 cents for ESPN. You're really paying anywhere from $8 to $10 for ESPN. See, here's what people don't understand. When you get your cable bill, you know why your cable bill is so high? It's because most of these cable networks, they're being paid per subs. Meaning, the cable companies are negotiating with the cable networks, and so they say, okay, we're going to pay for this. So all y'all people, everybody out here, you have cable and you hate Fox News, you're subsidizing Fox News. You didn't realize that, huh? Yeah, you are subsidizing Fox News. Because if Fox News is in 80 million homes, and Fox News has negotiated a $2 per sub carriage fee, that means pull your calculator out. That means 80 million times $2. That's what Fox News gets per month for the cable companies per year for the length of the contract. Yep. BET has a carriage fee. BET's carriage fee could be 25 cents, 30 cents, 50 cents, whatever it is. But just understand in terms of the financial reality. So when cord cutting happens, meaning you say, I'm cutting my cable, that means that the cable companies are losing you as a subscriber, which means that the cable networks are losing subscribers. Pull up the Comcast story. This year alone, Comcast has shed 1.15 million subscribers to their cable systems. That's Comcast alone, 1.15 million. Folks, that's money walking out of the room. If the average cable bill is $100, do the math. 1.15 million times $100 times 12. That's how much money Comcast is losing, and then the networks are losing money. So if you look at BET, the future of BET or any other cable network is going to really hinge on what is their digital strategy. So BET Plus, owned by Paramount, is not a part of Paramount Plus. Why? Because first, Tyler Perry owns 25% of BET Plus. That's one. Two, they actually are appealing to a different customer base. And so when you run those numbers, it makes sense to leave them as a standalone. And so what people have to understand here is that this is all a numbers game. This is a pure numbers game. And so through all the speculation, oh, the white folks didn't want it to be black owned, oh, the white folks, no. They would have sold that sucker to anybody had they come along and put the big number on the table. Because you know who's trying to do the exact same thing? David Zaslav over at Warner Discovery. Oh, if somebody came to David Zaslav right now and said, I'll pay you $20 billion for CNN, he will sell that sucker in a heartbeat. Why? Because he's got $40 billion in debt from the merger between Discovery and AT&T when they took over Time Warner, which now becomes Warner Discovery. And so what I need our people to understand is that this is called the business of the business. Business ain't emotional. Business not dealing with drama. It's dealing with money. And so if you're a Tyler Perry, it's smart not to raise your bid. Why? You see many of the reports out there. They said, oh, they got somebody post. I think the Shade Room posted this stupid post. Oh, Paramount got lowball offers. I put on the Shade Room site and say, what the hell are y'all talking about? I said, this is a dumbass headline. They weren't lowball offers. Anybody who bid under $1.5 billion for BET, they were smart because it ain't worth it. It ain't worth what they were asking. And so what we have to understand is that what we're seeing in the media landscape are the major companies trying to sell for a maximum number because they know this sucker is this dying. Probably by the middle of next year, late next year, you're going to see your major cable networks literally be at about 50 million subscribers. ESPN was 100 million 8 years ago. There's 74 million today. They're going to be under 70 million. And Disney is already analyzing flipping ESPN to a streaming-only service. And so television as you know it right now is going bye-bye. All of y'all who keep saying, oh, Roland, I can't wait till you get back on television. This is TV. This is TV. This is TV. The game has totally changed. And so for African Americans, from a consumer standpoint, we now have to make a choice. And that is, if we're no longer going to be spending $150 per month for a cable package, where are we now going to spend our money? So we can't keep demanding, oh, we want to see more news and more this and more that. I saw a bunch of people complaining about the commercial load on my Instagram page at BET. We only got too many commercials. Y'all, guess what? BET makes less in ad revenue today than they did 5 years ago. Speaking of ad revenue, if you pull that New York Times story up when BET was sold, in that story from 2001, it said that black-owned media was getting 1% of the advertising dollars. I need y'all to hear what I just said. In the 2001 story in the New York Times about BET being sold to Viacom, that story said black-owned media was receiving, get this, was receiving 1% of all advertising dollars. This is 2023. It is 2 years later. We're at, right now, between 1% and 2%. So if you want to understand also why BET is less valuable, it's because BET has getting the short shrift because they have black consumers. I want y'all to go look at Brett Pulley's book, The $1 Billion Bet, the unauthorized biography of Bob Johnson and BET. In that particular book, he writes that when Mel Karmazin, who was the CEO of Viacom, and Sumner Redstone, who owned Viacom, when they looked at BET, they said that BET was getting $1,500 for a 30-second ad. The same ad MTV was getting for $8,000. Let me repeat what I just said. BET was getting $1,500 for a 30-second ad that MTV was getting $8,000 for an ad. Let me go to magazines. Ebony Magazine was getting $20,000 for a full-page ad that Esquire Magazine was getting $200,000 for. So, the advertising industry has said, black people, you are less than white people, because we are going to spend less money on you to attract you than we are the white consumer. If you go back to that New York Times article, in the article, Mel Karmazin was quoted as saying, we think that we now can derive more value out of BET because we can sell BET spots at a higher price than they were being sold independently. Run the numbers. They are still black, and they still aren't getting the same value. And so what I want us to do is to understand why the business of the business matters. I want us to understand it's not as easy. People say, well, Tyler should just get with Oprah and launch a network. Oprah launched a network with Discovery. It was 50-50. They spent $381 million their first year. Guess what? Oprah has now sold her equity stake in OWN, and the Warner Discovery owns all of it. I think she maybe kept 5%. Bottom line is they own 95% of it. And so understand, oh, Magic launched a network. Nah, no, he didn't. Magic don't own Aspire. Okay, white-owned company owns Aspire. Bounce was never black-owned. You had a small percentage of black people who owned Bounce. It was a white guy who owned it, and he sold them to Scripps. And so really, when you talk about who's black out there who owns a network, yeah, you got TV One, okay, or a publicly traded company. You got Didi with Revolt. But the reality is you do not have, you got the Africa Channel. Of course, you got Byron Allen on his companies. But you do not have as many as people think. So I need our people to understand when we're out here just throwing stuff out and just saying, do this and do that, and we need this. But every black person who says, we need this, my question to you is, will you support it? Because see, here's what I find to be interesting. It's a whole bunch of black people. Matter of fact, let me pull it up. If I look at right now, if I go to my Instagram page, and I see 6,516 people who liked my Instagram post about Paramount not selling BET, and I see 495 comments, I guarantee you, if I ran a check on the names of the people liking this, I could probably guarantee less than 5% of the people who follow me who liked this post actually contribute to this show. So when I go down the line and people say, we need this and we need that and we need this and we need that, are you going to support those who are providing what you say we need? Greg Carr, I want to start with you. People get very emotional about these things when things that are black owned and then people sell. To this day, there are people who trash Bob Johnson and Sheila Johnson selling BET. And I have to remind people that, first of all, the sale of BET created more black millionaires than any other company in American history. Because BET was private, it went public, and then it became private again. But when it went public, a lot of people kept their equity, and so when it got sold, they became rich. And so right now, Bob and Sheila Johnson actually own more stuff, have more black employees than when they had BET, because they've been able to buy hotels and dealerships and all kind of stuff along those lines. And I'm always trying to explain to people also that I get the emotional investment, but when you weren't the one who was there trying to make payroll, keep the lights on, it's a little hard for trying to say what somebody else should do, what they shouldn't sell. But I think what I want, why I'm walking this through, and I remember when I broke down the whole deal with Black News Channel, I needed our people to understand that it's not so simple just to say, well, do this and do that and partner with so-and-so without understanding really where this business is going and the mechanics of this business. There are people who've come to me and they've said, man, why aren't you doing this and why aren't you doing that? And I'm like, where's your check? Because it's real easy to say what should be done unless you're the one who has to finance it. Because I know for a fact that in the first year of this show, it was negative $391,000. I used my speaking fees to keep the show going. I know what I personally gave. I know exactly what that number was because that was my money. And so when we talk about even this, if you are a Tyler Perry, and the New York Post had a story in June saying he wasn't going to increase his bid, it was a great story, and it was a smart deal. Because his whole deal is, I'm not going to pay for your mistake. It's smart business. I need more of us to understand the business of the business and not the emotion of the business.
Yeah, Roland, of course, I don't think there's anybody, and certainly if anyone could say that they understand the ins and outs of media business as well as you do, that's the best they could aspire to. Nobody's going to understand it better. Black, white, or polka dot. And you consistently walk us through these things, and it helps us understand this. I will confess that I have no investment in black millionaires at all. I think I agree with Kwame Nkrumah here on Marcus Garvey's birthday, interestingly enough. And Nkrumah, influenced by Garvey, but he said, the presence of millionaires in a society is no evidence of progress. In fact, it might be evidence of structural inequality. So, but that having been said, listening to you and understanding, how you have moved through the world at great sacrifice and deep investment, my question to you really is about how we penetrate the hearts and minds of our people so that we can have a little bit easier time to organize. We know that the civil rights movement, the long black freedom struggle, was undergirded by the black press, by black radio, by trained black journalists, and the platforms, for lack of a better term, in that period, the Pittsburgh Courier, the black radios, the Chicago Defender. Black people looked to them for news and for information, for guidance, for opinion. And here we are in a media platform where I was just reading, it's interesting Bob Johnson mentioned sports, just reading about the disintegration of the Pac-12 and how this is all a bidding war over content because people will watch sports, and they have turned a little bit from professional sports. The NBA has a contract coming up, and they're looking at these college leagues for content they can mine for profit. But we saw what happened with you at TV One, not an investment in news at TV One. We remember the days of Bev Smith and Ed Gordon at BET and the turn away from that. So now we got Tyler Perry with the same show with different names, whether it be the Oval or whatever, Brothers and Sisters, all them scripted. The dumbing down of Black America parallels the dumbing down of America. That's why these hillbillies will go out there and claim that Donald Trump won the election. My question to you is, how do What do you see as the future and the strategy for news and information in a moment in American and world history when we need it now more than ever? What role? How does the Black Star Network?
So,
How does independently owned? How
right.
does that fit in this landscape?
So I'll unpack it this way, because you called it the dumbing down, but it's actually not. It's actually the demand for that type of content. Here's what I mean by that. And I'll ask Lauren and Candace this because they are two black women. How many of you, Candace and Lauren, how many of you know highly educated, highly compensated black women who love the Real Housewives shows and Love and Hip Hop?
You trying to get us in trouble, Roland?
No. All you gotta say is, I know some.
But that is a niche market that does not accompany the particular demographic you described.
Actually, it is. Let me explain you why. Let me explain you why. It's because of these two right here. When Greg's brother says on our promo, "Bring your eyeballs home," wherever black eyeballs go, that's where the industry goes. Let me explain this. If you pull the Nielsen report, black people, I need everybody listen to what I'm about to say. Black people watch more TV than any other group in America, and it ain't even close. Our television consumption exceeds an average work week. Black consumers literally watch, listen to me clearly, black consumers literally watch more TV than a 40-hour work week. That's how much TV we consume. If you look at daytime television, if you want a successful daytime show, all you have to do is capture the black demo. You capture that, then you pick up a few white folks and others, you have a successful show, you make money. So all of these networks, so there's a reason why you are seeing a plethora of black content. Bravo, MTV, VH1, Lifetime. We could go on because we consume it all. So what happens then is that you have black folks who are driving these shows. Our viewing habits are driving the content. So they go, that's what you want to see. So I'll give you a perfect example. Candace, you're a lawyer. Have you noticed the explosion of true crime shows?
Oh,
on
yes.
television?
Oh, yeah, and podcasts.
Have you noticed
how
have you noticed how many of those shows feature black people? Do you know why? Because that demo, those shows have exploded with black viewers.
That's right.
And so what then happens is, when we watch those shows, TV One literally has now, it used to be like just Tuesday nights. They got now like 2 nights, it's just true crime. Go down the line. You can network after network after network after network. So what now then happens is we flock to those shows, we record them, we watch them live, we watch the playback. Advertisers spend crazy money on that, and then they go, they're not watching that stuff over there. So to answer Greg's point, what we do is we say, oh, we would love to see news and this. But when it comes to what we do with this, it's not that. And that's the problem where we are now. And then when something happens, we then go, Why didn't anybody tell me about that? It's because you were watching true crime shows, you were watching Love and Hip Hop, you were watching Real Housewives, you were watching daytime television, you were watching everything else. And so then when that suffers, and I go back to Bob Johnson when he had BET. I remember being at NABJ, and he gave a keynote speech, and somebody stood up, why are you not showing HBCU football games? He said, because y'all don't watch. Well, why don't you have more news? He said, because y'all don't watch.
Y'all don't watch. Roland.
The numbers are the numbers. And on the last point, I'm just going to give you this here. Tyree Nichols. When the body camp, there were 4,000 people who were watching us, which was actually higher than what we normally get live. 15 minutes after the body cam video watch, we hit 29,000 live viewers. The other day, what was the big story that happened a week ago? What was it, Kara? I forgot. Something happened, and everybody came to see what I had to say. I don't know what the hell just happened. I can't remember what it was. We almost had 10. Oh, I'm sorry. No. It was Montgomery. Okay. The Monday after the brawl, almost 10,000 people watching live. So they're there. We're choosing to watch something else until we go, oh my goodness, let's go find a black news guy. It's our viewing habits. It's our consumption. Candace, go ahead.
It is our viewing habits, but it's also the fact that there's a lot of good TV out there, black and white. So you just have more choice. And like you said, when you're dealing with the cable network, that cable is like the car that's driven off of the lot. It's just gone down. The same way that we're home now, when we're working from home, all of that has permanently changed. You are correct. I worked at BET News when it was sold. I worked at BNC when it closed down. So, you know, we know that the viewership is just not there. But Roland, you're ahead of the game. And I'm not just saying this because I'm on the show, but when you are doing what you are doing, you're doing what the whole world is doing all day long. They're on their phones, they're on Instagram, they're on social media, they're looking at clips from various news organizations and people like you, which is a news organization, and they're getting their information in their hands. As you said, they are cutting the cable. Another thing I want to say about this story is that you're right. People need to do more diligence when it comes to finding out that when you have a bid for something like a BET, there's a closing date. You can't say by law that you sold it until the closing bid date has begun. As you said, one phone call from any journalist could correct a headline in any minute, but they didn't do that. And the process closed this week, which is why they took it off the table. Everybody, even people who we haven't even heard of in the headlines, there have been so many black organizations and moguls who have bid for BET. Tyler Perry did the right thing. I think it was a little bit of strategy. You know what he didn't do? When all the headlines said that, hey, he's going to buy BET, or actually he bought BET, he didn't say anything. And that was a good move on his part, because he said, you know what? I'm out there. People think I'm out there. I'll probably scare a few people off, and I'm going to have this whole lane to myself. So all I'm saying is that everything
but they also couldn't say. They also couldn't talk because, frankly, there's an NDA process. Bottom line is, you can't be out there just talking. Remember, it's a publicly traded company. So it was. But again, there were people, Lauren, who were saying, "Well, you know, why didn't Tyler refute these lies?" I was like, because he doesn't need to. Call out the liar. I'm telling you, what drives me crazy, and I will say this, Lauren, and I got no problem. It pissed me off when I saw an NMPA writer write up a story saying Tyler Perry bought BET based off of a tweet of Rolanda Watts. And I was like, who the hell even allowed that story to even, who hit send? And this is the fundamental problem that we're seeing, Lauren, in black-owned and black-targeted media. We're not having real journalists. We're having people just respond to stuff. They don't make one phone call. They don't check with nobody. They don't know nobody. And I'm like, and you slapping your name on a byline, and you didn't know what the hell you're writing? I mean, and I remember I seen that article, and they literally quoted Rolanda Watts as the source and didn't even quote her in the article. And what Rolanda was responding to was that story from the streamer. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And this is what is hurting us. That the problem now, Lauren, is that these black blogs, all of a sudden, people now see them as the definitive sources of information when none of them know anybody and they're not reporting, they're just repeating. Let me say it. They're not reporting, they're repeating.
Yeah, you can expand that out, Roland, to like the New York Times and the Washington Post. I mean, I've seen it as an accidental crisis manager where major news organizations have not made a phone call and seen a press release and put it in the paper in an hour's time. And the reason for that is that there's a collision, as you know, of local media, small media dying on the local level in this country. There's a collision of these bigger companies, namely Facebook and Google, controlling algorithms that are eating up, of course, all the ads, all the classifieds. So that money that was made by the small papers is gone. So now the money is made by click-through rates, clicks on ads on the left-hand, right-hand, top nav. So what happens then is that truth and accuracy in journalism dies because speed to get that SEO, to get that traffic hit, to get something on there as quickly as possible of high controversy is of great value. So nobody is checking the facts. I mean, I have seen this. I have lived this. I cannot tell you how many times it has happened where I have seen completely inaccurate information get into major media organizations because they wanted it up first and they checked absolutely nothing. Okay, so there's that. Where the money is being made is on the clicks, and when the money is being made on the clicks, nobody cares about the facts. Nobody cares about the truth. And I know a lot of people who try to deny that in the news industry. They are fooling themselves. They're lying to themselves. One of the reasons we got Donald Trump was because CNN kept putting him on again and again and again because he was making them ratings. He was making them money. Okay, so I mean that is just right out there. The other thing is, I mean, to your other point with regard to the future of the business, I mean, I don't know about you, but I spend most of my time now on YouTube. And the reason I spend most of my time on YouTube is usually because I'm trying to learn something about something I'm trying to figure out, or because someone on YouTube is analyzing something that I care about at a deeper level than any of these corporate media companies. Of course, that includes this show, but there's other shows that will take one topic and analyze the hell out of it. And corporate media won't even touch the questions of something a lot of times, much less actually report on it. So that's why you see cable getting cut. This is why you see this discussion by Bob Iger about selling ABC. You see the discussion at CNN about selling CNN, because nobody's going to be watching this stuff because they're not even brave enough. They don't have the courage enough to have some of the discussions that need to be had in our society. That they just ignore. They just pretend they're not there. There's so many examples of that. So, I mean, even things like the Michael Irvin case or the, who's the dude that's in Creed that got accused, and now it's turning out that whole story is starting
Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors.
Right, John Majors. That's turning out to be nonsense. You see, the corporate media wants that story because it's controversy, it gets clicks. So you see Rolling Stone and Variety trying to keep the story alive, and you see people on YouTube deconstructing it. And they're deconstructing it in a way that the big media outlets should be deconstructing, and they're losing, and they're going to continue to lose because the truth has a certain power. People know the truth when they hear it and they see it, and they will gravitate towards it. The bigger problem, though, is these social media companies with these algorithms that are giving us nonsense and lies and allowing that to happen and blow up and go crazy. I mean, that's a huge problem.
So, Greg, so Greg, so here's where we stand, and where we stand is this, and it is one that I fear, and I literally, just so people, I'm on a text chain with a number of prominent civil rights folks, pastors and others, and literally, when I posted last night about the BET sale, what I talked about was what we're seeing. And I talked about the misinformation. I talked about how the billionaire right-wingers stopped arguing about the New York Times and the LA Times and CNN and CBS, and they said, we're going to fund our own ecosystem. So this thing is not just Fox News and not just conservative talk radio. It literally is Breitbart, the Daily Caller, the Daily Signal, the Daily Wire. It's the plethora. It's PragerU. And what they've done is, and so they figure it out. They say, wait a minute. If we focus on the news and information, and that's what they're driving. And so what's happening is, on the progressive black minority side, you see a fixation with entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
On the right, you see a fixation with news. Mm-hmm. And so so I need everybody to understand. I've had more brothers come to me, man, I got a great idea for a sports show. We're not doing one. Man, what are you talking about? I said, it's a plethora of sports already out there. Oh, man, I got a great entertainment show. We're not doing an entertainment show on Black Star Network. For what? I said, if I do one, it's 3, 4, 5 years away. I said, because it's a plethora. That's a deep pool over there. I said, I'm swimming in shallow water. I'm fixated on a niche, and we're saying this is how we're going to reach them. Because, again, I go back to the Paramount deal. Everybody else forgets. Somebody offered Paramount $3 billion for Showtime. They turned them down.
Mm.
You think somebody's going to... You'd be crazy to offer $3 billion for BET. Because, again, if you're Tyler Perry, if you're Diddy, if you're Byron Allen, if you're TV, you're anybody. If I'm going to be at that, and again, this is what we're now seeing, I need people to understand where we're going. It's actually smarter to say, I'm going to take 10, 25, 50, 100 million and literally create a digital property.
Right.
That I can build that's more economically viable than me spending and me going into debt and now having to service that debt, and I'm always going to be underwater. That's really what you're dealing with. And so what I want our people to understand is that moving forward, and I'm telling y'all, and I'm going to throw this out here before I let Greg close this out. I need y'all to understand how deep this thing goes. Every black family, and y'all thinking your son's going to be a first rounder, y'all money's about to change. You know why? Your money's about to change because the cable networks, they're losing subs. Where's the money for the rights fees are going to come from? Y'all better. Greg, you mentioned the Pac-12 deal. That was larger than subscription deal. The free money that used to be thrown around, the game has changed. Folk had better understand this thing is way deeper than they think it is.
No, absolutely. I mean, Roland, and Candace said this a minute ago. And she, like she said, she's not just saying it because she's here. And Lauren is here, and I'm here. And Faraji is here, and Deborah is here, and Jackie Hood is here. She's not just saying that because Reese is here. And, the Black Star Network is doing something that is, in the teaching profession, we call it God's work. It's thankless work. People might not necessarily understand it, but as you said, when there's something that folk need some reliable information on, you see the numbers explode. They come here. And Lauren, when you said you watch YouTube a lot, I try to stay out of digital world because I try to continue to be analog, as you can see, but I can't fight the future. So I look at YouTube a lot too for that very same reason. And I'm saying this to say that, we saw what happened to Bomani Jones at HBO or ESPN. High quality analysis. He couldn't stand. And then you see them throw something out, Comedy Central with Brother Leonard or Charlemagne, whatever he calls himself. That ain't high quality analysis, but they trying to strike the right chord. The idea of intelligent, penetrating, humorous at times, angry at times, but always consistently high quality analytical work, what Jacob Carruthers would call intellectual warfare. That's what you get with the Black Star Network. There's a lot of that stuff out on YouTube, but the difference between this, and I didn't know what the term OTT meant, over the top meant. Roland, you've built out a platform now that's not just YouTube, not just Facebook, not just Instagram, but literally its own platform and channel. And when folks subscribe, when folks hit the likes on YouTube and help try to drive the algorithm, that's extremely important, but you're not just relying on that. You've built out the entire network. And as Candace said, you're ahead of where these people are trying to go. Now, I said I didn't care about millionaires, but I will make an exception to that. Let me make an amendment to that. I care about millionaires and billionaires if they're going to do what the Ed Blooms of the world do, what the Murphys of the world do. In other words, I'm going to give you $100 million, Heritage Foundation. I'm going to fund you, Sarah Fisher, to attack affirmative action. I'm going to create a whole ass fake organization called SFFA and wipe out affirmative action. If we're going to have some black people line up to do that, and I'm not saying that Robert Smith hasn't invested, he gave some money to the New York Times for the 1619 project, and that's beautiful. But that ain't that, bruh. You need to get that money to the Black Star Network, because the New York Times going to be fine. This is what it comes down to. When you approached me and said, you know, bro, would you consider perhaps doing a show? Would you write a treatment? The thing that came to mind was, I said, what I don't see is, and I'm only saying this by comparison because people know the name Charlie Rose. We don't have a black Charlie Rose, so let's do the black table where I'll put that content up against anybody doing anything, anywhere. And I'm not saying that because it's me. I'm saying that because people come into the Black Star Network and they expect to be engaged, they expect to be elevated, and when authors and lawyers and doctors and critical people of any racial background come through the Black Star Network, they come away with, this is the level of quality that I am glad that I got to participate in, because this is the type of education that's going to help our people. You've got to support it. Why? Because our billionaires ain't writing checks like this. The white billionaires, the white nationalist billionaires are strictly just funding this thing cold-blooded. Moms for Liberty, funding this thing cold-blooded. And when they do that, they are able to penetrate and raise this to the level that they need. I'll end with this. We don't have that kind of money, but we do have people. And if everybody do a little, nobody has to do a lot. If we would simply invest in this platform, you would see the whole thing open up. And you know how we know? Where, well, they might be stingy on the ad revenue. They may not want to advertise with you, but guess what? They love money more than any other principle they have. That revenue will come to the Black Star Network, and then they'll start trying to tear it down. But by then, they'll realize the reality is when we all support it, you can't tear it down. But this is a critical moment. We're at an inflection point. And this story tonight about BET, this story allows us again to reinforce the fact that you've got to support this independent platform, not only because it's black, but because it is of the highest quality. And when you need to know, you can rely on this, and you prove it every time you think you need to know something. You come here.
Understand. And the reality is this here. You can run all of the entertainment stuff that you want. But you know what? When January 6th happened, folk were like, what we gonna do? When Trayvon killed, when George Floyd murdered, we can go down the line. What I need our folks to understand, I got no problem with entertainment. I watch all sorts of shows. But if you think for a second that I'm gonna walk around uninformed, you got another thing coming. And I'm telling you, and I'm gonna say it again to everybody who's watching and listening, Black America, we are going to rule the day when we are asking somebody else to tell our story. Now, matter of fact, you know what? I got this, you know what? I have not said this publicly, but I'm gonna go ahead and say this.
Uh-oh.
When I was at oh no, now I'm about to give y'all something, and listen, straight up. And I would love for the current leadership of BET to prove me wrong. When we were in Atlanta covering Melanie Campbell's grassroots organizing event in Atlanta, this was, what, May? Was it May? It was April or May. I ran into a sister, and she said, I'm so glad to meet you. She said, I know so much about you. And I was like, really? She says, yes. She says, after the death of George Floyd, she said, the leaders of BET came to me and said, it's time for us to do a news show. And she said, I ran the research. And she said, we did exhaustive research. We studied day parts, we studied shows, we studied other networks, we looked at radio, we looked at newspaper, we looked at podcasting. She said, we studied demographics, 18-24, 24-35, 35-44, 44-54, 55 plus. And she said, after we ran all the metrics, she said the research came back, and the number one person they said, Black America said they wanted to see host a news show on BET was you. She said it was you. She said Charlemagne was on the list, and she said, and then when Comedy Central launched his show, she said they're using my research. That's what she told me. And she wasn't dissing anybody. She just said, but I just want you to understand, you came in number one. She said, and it wasn't close. There was no one close to you. And I said, that's that's interesting. Because I know Scott Mills, the CEO of BET, and he never called. I know Connie Orlando, who's the exec there. She never called. I said, I know the sister she was running, well, it's escaping me right now, was running, Amy Dubois Barnett. She was over digital. I used to work with her when she was at Honey Magazine. Never called. She said all the top execs got the research. I said, interesting. Now, y'all know last year BET launched a monthly magazine show.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen it, but it's a monthly. Y'all, it's too much stuff happening with black folk to focus on a monthly, and most of those folks you see come from actually CBS. Why am I saying all of that? Because that's it's a perfect example. They did all the research, and Black America said, we want to see a show with Roland, and they never called. So why did I launch this? Because I was not going to sit at home and wait for somebody to call me and give me permission to talk to y'all. The future of Black America cannot hinge on somebody else deciding who should speak for us. Right. We will not prosper as a people if 15, 20 years from now, we're having to ask non-black owned outlets, can you please, pretty please, cover our people? Yes, we got here today because of Frederick Douglass and the North Star, Ida B. Wells Barnett, Claude Barnett, got here because of Robert Sinstadt, because of Robert Abbott, John Sinstadt, because of A.I. Scott, because of the Pittsburgh Courier, because of Jet and Ebony and Simeon Booker and Lerone Bennett, and we can go on and on. We got here because of the black press. That's who covered us. I'm telling y'all right now, Black America in the 21st century cannot and will not prosper if the people who we are relying on are focusing on hair and beauty and makeup and entertainment and sports and fashion. None of that will liberate Black America. And so, I will say it, I got no problem. I do hope that Tyler Perry is the one by BET. Why? Because you can criticize Tyler shows, you can say what you don't like, but the one thing I do know, Tyler understood, damn, a seat at somebody else's table, he understood about building his own table.
That's true.
And when that is your state of mind, you are more likely to actually give a damn about black news than somebody else who only cares about making another buck.